We've talked about the offense, Florida State's running game, Jordan Travis as a passer, and we've done so with the film and with Dominic Robinson, the lead football analyst here at Warchant TV and warchant.com. Dominic, good morning to you as we record this. It's 7-0 Florida State that we're breaking down these days.
Yes, sir. We've got a good look at the offense, and I turned on the film, try to see what the film was going to tell me about the defense. There's a lot of public opinion or conception or ideas about who we are as a defense and maybe what we need to do. And so I turned on the film and try to see what the film told me. So I'm excited to dive in.
Well, here it is, the All-22. Now we're going back to Clemson for a little bit of an indicator on what Florida State's defense has been doing this year. One of the best tests Florida State is going to see all season long, so it makes sense to go back to Death Valley to learn some things. So, Dominic, why was this particular game or this particular moment important to you when telling the story about what Florida State's defense is?
So I watched every game pretty much straight through all 22. And honestly, I wasn't getting anything jumping out on me, meaning out at me, meaning there was nothing that was egregious. The tackling is good. The scheme is good. They're getting off blocks. They're doing all these things at a very high level. So there just wasn't much, the coverage is good. There wasn't much. But I found this drive, and I thought it was a really good microcosm of who the defense is, their identity, and maybe some of the things that they need to clean up.
Okay.
So here was the first down play. This is the start of the drive. So they're in cover one there. The reason why they're in cover one is this one high safety. You can see that this guy is coming down. He's in a stance that he's coming down. And then the corner go flipping sides, or the nickel flipping sides when the wide receiver went over. So that's a good indication when this happens, as this guy moves, that they're in cover one. The reason why that's important is Florida State has played about 45%-ish man coverage. And a lot of that has to do with first down, which they're stopping the run on first down very well. A good reason for that is they're playing with plus numbers because they have the ability to play man coverage. So here, the corners are obviously locked on man, and you can see a 6-man box. Well, they only have 6 to block. Okay, so we have 6 guys in here, and they have 6 guys that can block. And we're going to add a guy to the run. So we're +1 to the run. You can see, and there's our +1, and there's a -1 gain, or maybe a no gain. Okay. So that is really, really important, because when you are good on first down, usually those lead to teams that are good on third down, because they're in good third down situations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's the second down play. Okay, on the second down play, they went to a quads look into the boundary. So this is the short side of the field. And so when they do that, you have to make a decision. Do you heat them up, meaning you bring pressure, you bring more than they can block? So they have 5 guys that can protect this one guy because the running back is out here. And then you bring more. You either bring 5, so you have one-on-ones across the board, or you bring 6. You add a guy, or you play coverage. So in that case, you want to be +1. Okay, so you want these 4 plus this guy. So you bring 4. That's 4.5 here, and then you don't want to leave this guy on an island. So you have a 2-on-1 here. Okay, if you do that, usually you're susceptible to quarterback run game. And, so you got to make a decision. And that's the tough part about empty set. Okay. So they go from an empty, they bring the back in. So when they do this, they're attempting to get Will Shipley here with a one-on-one on number 4. They're trying to get him out in space. You can see Klubnik checks. When he sees that 4 goes running with him, here's where you're now going to be good in the passing game, because you've got 4 on 3 here into the boundary, which is a decision that you have to make, pre-snap, because there's less space over here There's more space over here. So typically you have more players to the field, not into the boundary. And this is why offenses go into formation into the boundary to make it difficult there. So they're playing zone here. Okay. A lot of people will go, man, we need to bring more pressure. We need to bring more pressure. There's what is that? 12-yard gain, 13-yard gain. Okay. On 2nd and 10. Okay. That's probably not, you probably think, oh, that's not good. The reason why, if you look at this, everybody's got sticky coverage here. Okay, you'd like a better angle from your corner so that when he does make contact, the wide receiver can't fall forward. But more than anything, if I had any fear as a Florida State fan or somebody that follows Florida State, it would be this number 2 back here. Okay, this is a good ball. This is thrown on time. We talked about last week a lot with Jordan Travis about being on time. This is catch. He reads the field. He says, I don't like Shipley. I don't like the matchup. 4 is running. He's a good athlete. 4 is running with him. He goes back to the boundary. The ball's on time. It's out front. Gives the receiver time to run. This is just a good play. You tip your cap to the offense and say, hey, these guys are good. They got scholarships too. But,
a quick question on that. The coverage from 20 is R.E.A. Thomas. You've got no issue with the technique there, leverage, all of it. That he's where he should be, and you can't ask much more. Or should he have been a little bit closer at the point of the catch and getting downhill? What would you say to that?
So what I'm seeing here again is 3 into the boundary. You can see that the number 3 wide receiver right here. He releases slightly outside. So he has to keep his leverage because what he doesn't want to do is get squeezed by this guy. And now this guy runs past him. So he has to play. This is good technique. I would maybe, you look at when this receiver breaks and then look at when he breaks.
Mm-hmm.
That's
what you're looking for. That as
he's not real late,
Yeah.
This is this timing is pretty dang good. Everything is good. Like I said, the only thing I may critique is just this angle. He's got to beat him to that spot so that he doesn't fall forward.
Mm-hmm.
But the concept here wins. The offensive concept wins. The game is made for offense. Understand that, So sometimes the offense wins, and sometimes you just tip your cap. If they have a quarterback that's going to be on time and put the ball where it's supposed to be, with accuracy, then, some concepts, they just win. But if you look at everybody's got a garnet, pair of pants, standing next to them when this ball is caught. There's a little space, here again to the guy that gets completed, but this is sticky coverage by everyone. And this is probably a play that, later on you go, God, we got to have better coverage. There's nothing. I see no issue with this. This is one of those where, maybe later in the game, you see this same formation and, and maybe he jumps it and takes a chance. But, this is earlier in the game. This is the first time he's seen that concept. I thought that was really good. So the next play, they come right back to the same formation. Quads. It's technically to the boundary, but the ball's in the middle of the field. But they're trying to see if they can isolate this guy. Florida State's defensive coordinator says, no, we're not going to let you isolate him. We're going to play 2-on-1 over here, and then we're going to play 4.5. So these 4 defenders and this guy is my half guy because he's also responsible for quarterback run game. Are going to be responsible for these 4 offensive players. Okay, again, so you're playing a zone, and so the nickel or is maybe the Sam linebacker here. He triggers on the screen. That's taken away. We got sticky coverage down here. They're looking to throw the screen. They couldn't do it because he triggered. We're covered here. He doesn't see this throw because he's looking to play this screen, and this guy's standing in the middle of the field. Again, we're sticky up here. this is covered well, and there's nowhere to go with the ball. And then the defensive end gets a pressure. You'd like to see the tackle not dip his head inside there. Okay, he's got to be responsible. So I'm gonna try and draw here, see what we get. So around this quarterback, we've got 4 quadrants here, or spokes. I call them spokes.
Yep.
And so obviously this guy is rushing to this spoke, so he is responsible for this spoke right here. So when he dips inside here, that's exactly where that quarterback's going to escape out. Okay, so that's obviously an issue. But in terms of coverage and coverage scheme, that's all of that is really clean. And then you got number 4, playing the Mike backer, who's responsible for quarterback escaping, and he's chasing him down with great speed and technique. Again, this is not, they're not bringing any pressure. They're playing a zone quarters coverage. We'll talk a little bit later about the different coverages. We talked cover 1 earlier. Quarters is their number 1 coverage this year. They're running it at a 30% rate. And as you see, it's producing results and get you to a situation that you really like, which is that, a guy running the ball that's probably not his forte. Again, you come back to it. Quads, we're looking to play quarters here. They're in a condensed set. Nice, easy completion. Again, this is one of those things, if you just if you're an offensive coach, you're looking, this is how we run the ball. If we're having trouble running the ball because Florida State's coming out in a cover 1 look on early downs, and they're taking our run game away. So this is how we combat that, is we throw quick game, and all we just got to do is tackle, get him to the ground, line up, and play another play. Quarterback gets the ball out on time, and this is all good as long as we tackle. Okay?
So you're thinking this is good all the way around by both sides here.
This is just good. This is just good football right here.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the nickel here down here to the bottom, I would like him. So right here, you want him to hold in this area just a little bit longer. And the reason being is you don't want that throw to be so easily accessed.
Okay.
But aside from that, this is pretty clean. It's a good play call by them. And you're not, it doesn't matter. I guess the point I'm trying to make is you could say, oh, well, why don't we bring pressure on this? That thing is catch throw.
Yeah.
If you're getting pressure on that, man, like that, the other team is really bad.
And if it's not catch throw, your D line's winning there anyway. I mean, they're starting to cave it as he's letting go. Yeah.
Exactly. He has to let go of that ball. When he does it. So you tip your cap, you line up, you play another play. Okay, so then you're wondering, yeah, man, go out. We got to bring pressure. They're throwing quick. We got to bring pressure. Okay, so what you'll see is this safety coming down. As he comes down, he's thinking he was going to be the pressure guy, but he doesn't want to leave this tight end free. So he slows down. He ends up not pressuring, and the linebacker gets stuck in coverage doing what he's probably not accustomed to doing, covering here. So they both kind of get stuck in between, not knowing who's got who. We don't get pressure. We end up not even getting a 5-man pressure, although the Mike linebacker adds late right there. But there's no pressure, and you've got one-on-ones everywhere else. Okay, so this is the case for you don't need to bring pressure. You've been good, with a 4-man rush, and the second that you try to bring pressure, you give up your first explosive. The other thing that I noticed with Florida State's defense is there's just very few explosives given up. I was just looking over and over through everything. LSU game, there's a big one that was late and subs were in. BC, there's a couple that are, 30-yard explosives and things like that. But there's very few plays that are like this. And usually when they happen, they were actually in this same, 5-man pressure, single safety, cover one look a
Can I
lot
ask?
of times. So
Can I
we'll
ask?
pull up a BC film later also to show another time where the cover one 5-man pressure burned them.
So here's a fan question, because the guy who's in coverage there is a defensive end for 95% of his responsibilities, Byron Turner. Is that's just a function of, if you're going to pressure, somebody's got to be in coverage in that situation? Because it's one of those pet peeves when the public sees a defensive end chasing a safety or chasing a tight end in coverage, they all throw stuff. I almost said something else across the room, D-Rod. So as a coach, what do you see there, and is that something that makes you as angry as the public, or no?
So this ends up being, this is the chess match. What happened was this guy traded. He was on the other side, which means he was going to be covered by this guy, this safety.
Okay.
When he traded, the pressure, which was coming from here, now puts him in coverage. Okay. So right there, they got lucky. They called the perfect play against what against this pressure, and they won the chess match there. Now again, this safety tried to bail the coach out by trading the pressure, giving it to that defensive end, and then he was going to cover that tight end. You could see he stopped to go cover him, and then he's like, oh, well, that guy's got him, so I'm going to go. He gets stuck in between, which is the worst place to be. You don't ever want to be stuck. If you're a pressure guy, you got to be going with your hair on fire. And if you're a cover guy, you got to be covering. You don't want to be doing neither. And right here, he gets stuck doing neither. He's not running after the quarterback, and he's not covering a guy.
That's tough communication to execute before the snap too, right?
It's very tough. That's something that, you would have had to have kind of communicated pre-snap, and let him know, hey, if tight end trades, it's a swap. Okay, tight end trades, we're going to swap. And then as soon as that guy moves, now the safety knows, okay, we're swapping. I'm going to take the tight end. You're going to add to the pressure. Okay. And so he knew what he needed to do. He just didn't get it executed. You could see right there. He knew what he needed to do. He knew it didn't get executed, and then he thought, well, shoot, hopefully I can sack the quarterback, and coach won't cuss me out. But then he's just stopped, and you give up an explosive there. And here's the final play of the drive. Now we've given up a chunk play, running pressure. The first down play, we went back to the same, typical first down call, cover one, and stopped them for a no gain or maybe a 1 yard gain, and get right back into your quarters coverage look. Everything is good here, and what happens is number 10. This is the boundary linebacker. If you watch, he turns his back and we're in a zone coverage. Okay, so when you're in a zone coverage, you want eyes on the quarterback as much as possible. You never want to turn your back. When he gets his back turned right there to go chase, so he's supposed to wall number 2 and then balance and break with his eyes back on the quarterback. So he should be sitting right here in this window, and he would come down and tackle.
I'm glad you're breaking this down.
Runs, yep. So because he turns and runs, this looks like to the novice or maybe somebody watching at home, you go, oh man, number 20 got beat on a slant, by Will Shipley. And it's this isn't necessarily his fault. His job is to be outside leverage and send that to the Will linebacker, which is number 10. And man, I just realized we have a number 10. Derek Brooks, they gave that up. They took that out of retirement.
They retire. They retire the jersey, but not the
The
number.
jersey, but not the number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I just realized that. So yeah, so that's what happens here, and it gives up a touchdown. But that is not a function of a scheme issue. This is everything is really sharp here. Again, you see there's gold helmets next to every other orange helmet except for that one, and all that was a guy just playing aggressively and trying to get a reroute. Number 10 trying to get a reroute on him too aggressively and chasing that guy. He doesn't need to chase him because he has safety over top. That
Oh,
safety and I would say that safety on that side is a little bit too deep. You don't want a guy guarding the back 2 yards of the end zone because that quarterback will put it in front of him. But
yeah.
but
Okay.
aside from that, that's where this touchdown is given up, is right there in that turning your back in zone.
Okay, so I'm so glad you broke this down because I thought with my non-expert knowledge, D-Rob, it wasn't that about the slant. You could tell it's zone. You could tell there's a pass off that needs to happen there. But my
Mm-hmm.
thought is that Azarie 20 at the bottom of the screen is just not fast enough, and they didn't communicate well enough in the pass off. I didn't realize that the responsibility is for the linebacker 10 to be waiting for that angle throw right at him, and he's passing off the receiver to the safety. See, I had no idea. So essentially 10, the linebacker, has a responsibility where you have it right now for maybe a yard or two more, and then it's the safety's fault if something goes bad with the wide receiver.
Correct. And the reason why Azarie is what you would consider late
Mm-hmm.
or doesn't have enough speed to take that isn't because he doesn't have the speed. It's because he is responsible for this area.
Okay.
So I have to protect my leverage, and I want to be slow away from my leverage. I'm going to be fast to my leverage. So if Shipley were to try to go outside of him, he's going to jump all over that.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's inside, I'm not going to be fast to an inside cut because now I'm going to give away this area.
Okay.
I'm going to give away the outside area. So he's just thinking, okay, I have to be aggressive outside. And you can see when Shipley gives him an outside move, it's perfect for the leverage that he's playing because he's trying to play outside leverage. He's going to protect his leverage, and Shipley does a good job of, again, catch and run, falling in. But yes, that's not necessarily on the corner, not being fast enough. It's he has a job to do, and his job is to be outside leverage and keep everything inside because he's responsible. If number 80 right there, number 1 were to go to the out,
Mm-hmm.
or again, like I said, if Shipley were to make a move and try to go outside of him, which is a rail route or a wheel route, he's responsible for that. So he needs to take that away before he does anything else.
So it's on 10, the linebacker, and then the safety is just way too deep in the end zone. Like, what's the point of being that far back? Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this their second down play where there's a communication bust?
There's 2 2nd and 15 plays.
Yeah, this is the second play from scrimmage. I remember this one. They called
the second play of the game.
Yep.
Ends up being a huge bust. Again, it was a 5-man pressure with this where the safety was coming.
That looks like a pre-snap communication issue, right? About whose responsibility is whose.
Yeah, well, yes, but then what happens is, so he's telling him, you've got to roll down and take number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 becomes this guy.
Right.
They go play action. It's an eye discipline issue. His eyes get stuck on him when they need to be on him. He's his new number 2. So when he comes down, he sees play action. His eyes get stuck in the backfield. He doesn't see that this guy slips back. And so now.
So it's basically motion causes confusion. And
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly. And that's, that's a pretty common thing. And when you're in cover 1, and that's kind of what I alluded to. I think it might have been during Sunday Smash, which is we're playing a lot of cover 1. And when you start playing these more proficient teams, especially when they go fast,
Hmm.
It's hard to just live in cover one. And that was part of my other graphic, which was, Bama and Georgia are playing about 20% less
Yeah.
command coverage than us. And it's because of the amount of no huddle, proficient offenses that they go against. You can't live in. It's not that they don't have the guys, and that's why I use them, is because they definitely have the guys that can play cover one. It's just that you can't do it at a very high level for 60 snaps in the SEC week in and week out. You'll kill those guys. So, and a lot of it is because of this. This is what offenses are doing. They're going fast, and then they're shifting, and then they're motioning. And you've got to communicate all of that while you're tired. This is only play 2. Imagine if it was play 58.
Yeah. Well, and part of the problem for the team that week is the flu ravaged the locker room, so they're already beat up before they get off the bus. And so we've had a look at the film, but there's also some data behind all of this. You just saw one of the graphics where Florida State is running an awful lot more man coverage than, the staples of good defensive football the last 10 years, and that would be Alabama, Kirby Smart, Georgia. Now, D-Rob, there are some other numbers that you wanted to share, insights on Florida State. Let's go ahead and take a look at those and tell us why they are important to understanding why Florida State defense looks the way that it does.
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions is, and I touched on this during the all 22s, is God, they need to pressure more. They're playing a lot of zone, passive defense, and their pass blitz rating, or percentage, is about 30%, which is on the low side. So it's they're blitzing at a 26% rate, which is close to average, is a little bit below average, and then the pass blitz rate. So it's essentially on at times when you're getting a pass. So it's essentially third and medium and longer. They're blitzing about 30%, which isn't very much. But again, the film tells me that when they do try to dial up pressure, a lot of times it ends up putting them in bad situations, whether that's communication wise, whether that's technique wise. And so the amount of pressure that's needed because of the strong front four and the ability to get pressure without bringing a blitzer is very high. The other thing to look at is just the coverage rates. They spend about 30% is the highest percentage that they run quarters, and 25% cover one. So that's a big chunk of the defense is either going to be quarters, which ends up playing out like man if all the guys are vertical, and then 25% cover one. So it's over 55% is is some sort of what ends up playing out like man coverage, which is very, very tough for a secondary, and they're doing that at a very high level. What I alluded to earlier on a Sunday Smash is how difficult that's going to be to maintain throughout a long season. Guys get tired, offenses start going fast, you start playing more proficient offenses. And so our percentage of man is way higher than, like a University of Georgia or University of Alabama, who has the athletes that can really, cover man to man. But what you have to also look into is the ability to play that over the course of 60, 70 plays, and an offense, running no huddle with a shift in motion on every play. And that's typically where you see the breakdowns. It's not just the ability to play man to man. It's more getting schemed out of it through shift in motion. So our percentages of, or Florida State's percentages of man versus zone is pretty high as you start to get into the ACC championship, bowl games, and potentially the playoffs. On third down, they're doing a decent job. They're 37, they're 37th in the country, so that's not great. They're getting off the field at a 44% rate, and the best defense is at 57%. I believe that's That's Georgia and LSU, both at 57%. So it's not far, from the top, but it's certainly proficient enough that you can win football games. So those are the numbers, sort of what the numbers tell me. And the biggest number really in the end is, scoring defense. They're 21st in the country. They're, giving up 18.5 points per game. If teams don't score, they can't win. So you can do all this other stuff and play whatever coverage you want, but it comes down to blocking and tackling and then keeping teams from putting the ball in the paint. And they're obviously doing a great job of that. So, so that's sort of what the numbers are telling me. And, it's been a fun defense to watch. Like I said, you turn it on and you just don't see any holes. The film is telling me that, there's obviously always going to be some things that can be cleaned up, but as a whole, it's almost boring. It's boringly good. They stop teams when they need to stop them. They play great run defense on early downs, and they're proficient enough on third down to win football games.